Okay, so back in about 2007, 2008, I went to Steve and Terry Maxwell's conference called the Maxwell Conference. This was held in a small church because Southeast Christian Church decided that they were too fringe group even for them to host. So naturally, my parents had to drag me to this smaller church. And I say parents, but really it was my mom. The Maxwells are very much, I mean, they're extremists, they're fundamentalists, and they thrive on either scaring people into doing what they want or just outright beating people. They use whatever tools they can to cajole their targets into complying with their will. The way that you get to be millionaires like these people are is by being more extreme than whatever other fundamentalists are out there. You're dealing with somebody who's just the equivalent of, they're the Christian version of the Taliban. They don't want any technology or civilization getting into their they don't want to risk any technology or civilization threatening their grasp on power. So naturally they're going to try to outlaw it or discourage people into using it. And I used to be scared of these people. But now it's just, their targets are emotionally vulnerable or people who have no other power, so who are people who are looking for power themselves. So lower income parents, extremist parents, which, that's what I've got. And they prey on these people. So going through my notes, other things are gonna occur to me as I go through here, and they're still around. These are the full quiver type of people. They think they're going to get their way by breeding themselves into power. They get money from, they're at the top of a pyramid where people who want power are giving more power to people who have a higher status or are more extreme than them. They're looking for any tools to control people who are underneath them or who have less power than them. Christianity is if nothing else, if it's not a sex cult or a death cult, or a money cult, it's definitely a power cult. It's built around the themes of weakness and strength. And their goal is just to be stronger, wealthier, just anything that will give you an edge over someone else, or a world, as they call it, when really they want the same things as everybody else. Mainly power, but also money. Decisions are based on the word, except when they're not. Except when they're based on what is going to leverage your position more. In which case they can use tricks to vary the interpretation that people have, and sometimes they'll go back to the same verse with a different interpretation than they used the last time, just as long as it fits their agenda. when you try to confront them with what the scriptures say and all the verses about, all the inconsistent verses, all the unscientific verses, suddenly they don't appeal to the Word anymore. They have to appeal to their own interpretation of it, extra biblical sources. And when you ask them, as long as they're appealing to extra biblical sources to go by science and stuff, suddenly that's off the table and they're back to the Word again. The Word. As if there's not, multiple text versions. Multiple versions of the Bible. It's stressful going through these just every time I have to do this. Not super stressful, just kind of boring stressful. It's like trying to talk to people that you're not getting any place with. The way that the Maxwells get people to buy into what they're selling isn't by promoting it on its own merits. They have to discourage or disparage something else. And they don't have much that's beneath them in terms of stuff that they can talk against, because they're already just so bereft of any kind of moral sense or anything that they can offer you. Not in terms of immediate results in the real world. They want to be on top of the pyramid and money and stuff. So naturally, you've got to be the person to give up your money and goods. It's not going to be them, because what's better than them? They're already at the top of the values pyramid. There's no one who's morally superior to them. So naturally, you've got to give your money to them. Who are they going to give their money to? There's nobody who's more morally superior to them. No worthier cause than them. So what they did was they were talking down the entire world around them. That's what they're doing. They wrote down, or I wrote, when I write my notes, what I'm doing is I'm writing verbatim what they're saying, or paraphrasing as closely to what they're saying as possible. Solomon had enjoyment, but it didn't please him. So they want to talk you out of having any kind of happiness yourself, because they're not going to be able to offer you any. It's just so sad that if you look at their kids, they have no lives of their own. It's entirely dependent on their parents. Joy should come from fellowship and servanthood. Now, their version of servanthood looks like, trying to convince other people into serving them. That's their version of servanthood. Their version of servanthood is going around the country doing book tours and stuff, and enriching themselves off of lower income people. John 8:34, sin can become your master, when in reality it's the Maxwells that are trying to become the masters of other people. Proverbs 28:13, don't hide your sins, confess and repent. There's something I was going to say about that. Oh yeah, they want to have knowledge that they can use over their subjects. The subjects being the lesser people in the church, because they've got nothing to confess. When you are the designer of your own moral structure, or when your money, when your income depends on this religion, of course you're not going to have anything to confess. because you are the game master of your own game when you're doing that. You are the king of the hill in that case. And your code of rules is telling you that you are going to be ruler over other people. So naturally you'd expect those people to be in charge of others. They don't have anyone to be accountable to when they're the ones making the rules. James 5:16, confess and pray. Your service projects should be hard. Of course they want people to work for them. Fun costs money, health. This is the big thing of the Maxwells. They don't want anybody to enjoy themselves. They want people to be their serfs. It's kind of a feudal thing where, you get this trickle-up economy. You've got the bottom rungs filled with people who are doing service projects, tithing, sending their money to the church or the ministry, to people like the Maxwells. And people who are working to bring people into the church. They're looking for new marks, new people to that will be in the bottom rung, of donors and the people who are doing the really hard work, who actually have real jobs as opposed to what the Maxwells do. Fun is bad. Video games are bad. The internet is bad. Having a computer in the basement is bad. Sports are bad. Competition is bad. They didn't want competition. They don't want their servants fighting among themselves. LAN parties are bad. Winning is bad. Sports are time consuming. Consumer goods, video cards, sound cards are bad. Dumb friends are bad. They want to make sure you're hanging out with the right people. So anybody who poses a risk to waking you up out of the cult is a bad person. Christian Contemporary Version, WJIE, is bad. If anything resembles something invented or followed by the world. This is another big thing. And I don't know how much more obvious it needs to be that you're living in a cult when the cult refers to everyone else as the world. I mean, they're just flat out admitting there's us and then there's the rest of the world. It's like you're saying, okay, we fully admit to being a small insular group on the fringes of society, operating by our own rules, and then there's the world out there. And you don't want to be a part of the world because then you don't get to get the perks of living within our cult. Don't spend time with friends. Pick your friends like you pick your spouse. Of course, you're expected to have a spouse. I feel so bad for their children and grandchildren. It's like they must feel so... If they weren't like swamped by, houses crawling with children, they must feel so isolated and lonely. If they ever had time to themselves to reflect on their lives that wasn't spent praying, I mean, I can imagine how hopeless they'd feel, because I've gone through that. to think that there's nothing else besides the cult. Only be friends to true Christians. If anything resembles something invented or followed by the world, it is bad. I don't know how much more obvious it can get. Parents must pick or approve of your girlfriend. There's a good reason why you've got these people who are going into adulthood and they have no experience with dating or courtship or the opposite sex. It's just because you've got this structure that's ruled by, the authorities, the parents, or the church in this case, who have veto approval, who have veto or approval power in terms of who it is that you're seeing and when you're seeing it. And it can be really hard to escape that. Just because you get into adulthood, you don't have a job, you don't have any way of self-supporting yourself. You don't have any kind of emotional support to fall back on. You don't have any friends to support yourself with. And your life is just totally controlled by either the church or your parents. It's just sad. Ephesians 6:2-3, obey your father and mother, or else. Submit to parents. Prepare by preaching, visiting widows or orphans. Naturally, they don't want you to be hanging out with your own peers to see how bad that you've got it. It's kind of like the thing where Orthodox followers of Judaism, like they'll blindfold young men going into an airport because they don't want them to, personally witness what it is that they've been missing out on. And to realize just how much they've been suppressed and oppressed. Prepare by working non-stop. This is kind of part of the reason I've been a workaholic. Just this attitude that your time isn't your own. Just this onus that the Christian church tries to put on you to earn money for the pyramid scheme. Prepare by foreign languages. Don't wait to go into the ministry. Studying scripture. I'm fascinated by languages, but all of your motivations have to be geared towards feeding the monster, the church. Develop as many skills as possible, as opposed to specializing. Set financial goals and work towards them. Start and run a business. Don't fall into the fun trap. Late obedience is disobedience. Again, obey. Or else. There's always that terroristic threat hanging behind you. Or hanging above you in the form of the authorities. Titus 1:6. Authority should be based on child-rearing abilities. And naturally, when you've got somebody in a position of authority sitting in front of you on a stage going, I've got X number of children, therefore I'm a good parent, and I'm obeying all of the rules that my book says you should obey, therefore I should have authority. What I'm saying is, you're granting yourself authority. And then you've got this book, books, because they write books and expect you to obey them in addition to the scriptures. meanwhile, on the out of the other side of their mouths, say that you should obey only the word, of the Bible. Romance should be demonized, not idolized. And, this is where I didn't take these people seriously. Even back then, I was making jokes the entire time it was going on. There was a lot of shouting at the conference. He wants to be in a constant state of power and won't relinquish it to a coach. So they had a problem with even kids going into sporting events because it meant relinquishing some power. You don't see a little bit of a problem here. And this is what my parents wanted. They wanted more power over me and my siblings, so naturally they go to somebody who agrees with them. And they weren't the only ones. There was a, church full of these people. He has them work at home so he can be a boss. He didn't let them leave the home to work. They had to work for him. So they couldn't learn anything that wasn't coming from them. They had control over information. They had control over their income. They had control over where they could go. This is the kind of thing that makes me want to join child advocacy groups. And part of the reason why I've got a problem with, the age at which you're able to get a job and own property and just have self-autonomy is because you got kids who are growing up in a cult, and once they leave, they've got nothing. Because by the time they're 18, they've already been so brainwashed into it that they have no choice but to just continue living their lives under their parents' thumb. TV is the beast. Matthew 18:6, be accountable for children's lives. Again, the feudal system kind of thing, where parents have to fear what it is that their kids are going to be doing, because they'll be accountable for it. In other words, if their child does something wrong, the parents are held accountable to it, or for it, to the church. And the church is held accountable to God. So you've got parents ruling by fear because they're afraid of what the church is going to do to them. Fun is the devil's counterfeit for joy. This is verbatim coming from them. Fun is cheap. And they don't want you to do anything they don't want you spending your money any place other than on the Maxwells. Deuteronomy 7, 1 through 4. Don't let your children worship false gods. Don't inform your children what's going on in schools. It makes it look like fun. Just restriction of information. This is psycho stuff. Egorios, be pure and discerning. I don't know what that means. Don't have sports idols. Homeschoolers aren't sheltered enough. Lamentations 3:27. Work when you are young. Use the business to learn skills, not gain income. So even, do you know what working without having an income is? It's called slavery. Seek parents' counsel. They are business partners, although they're supposed to be your business partners, yet you don't get any benefit from it other than the skills. And you don't get any direct benefit from it monetarily. Can you imagine if you had a business partner that wouldn't give you any money from the business? It wouldn't last long. Don't be greedy. Proverbs 3:9, tithe. So give us your money, give us your power, obey, obey, obey. Don't be independent. They want you to declare your dependency. Proverbs 15:27. Oh my goodness. Learning businesses. Goal is to learn non-profit. Expenses are covered. You still pay taxes. So it's a non-profit, but you still pay taxes because it's a learning business. In other words, they don't want you to be profitable. They want the goal of your business to further their goals. But, as long as they're not seeing any money from it, they don't really care whether or not you succeed. Ministry business. Goal is to minister and meet with people. It's just sick. They do the creeping tithe thing where they start with something that's like, well, to start out with, we're going to say that minimum you should contribute this much. Matthew 22:21, minimum you should be giving 15%. Above $4,000 you should be giving 23%. Above $7,000 you should be giving 30%. Or maybe this just has to do with taxes. God's directions take top priority. So you're not supposed to have a successful business, you're supposed to have a godly one. Don't witness at the cost of your job. Sure, because it's like they talk out of both sides of their mouth. They want you to further their goal. I'm trying to articulate what it is. They want you to further their goals, but not at the cost of the tithe that they're bringing in. In other words, the agenda is sometimes less important than the money that you're giving to the church. Don't give children a choice. Seek God, work, prepare children to be providers. Because by the time that you're raising children, you're already kind of stuck with that lifestyle. You've now got to repeat what your parents did. Pleasure is temporal, not everything is edifying. Okay, I gotta stop the video here soon because it'll go over the time limit. What was that? Alright, I've actually got to stop the video here.